Maryland football has a big game against Towson.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda. Move and be moved. Maryland football has a big non-conference matchup against the Towson Tigers. So we're 2-0 so far on this season. I don't think we could ask for much more from Maryland football so far this year. It hasn't been perfect, but football is never perfect. I don't care who you're watching. The team's never going to be perfect. But I think so far the way Maryland football has played through this non-conference game, we will definitely take. We've seen flashes of how Malik Washington has looked. We've seen the defense look really good the past two games. We've seen some talented playmakers on the outside that we didn't expect. We've seen a couple of stars being born, and a kid like Dorian Fleming and Daniel Wingate at the linebacker position, and some of the freshmen outside of Malik Washington, like the two pass rushers, Cindy Stewart, Zahir Mathis. I think we definitely have a pretty good idea of who we are heading into our last non-conference game against the Towson Tigers, who I do think is better than what a lot of people think. This isn't a game we can just blow by. This isn't a game that we just win automatically and don't play well. And I think if we don't play well, it could very much be a close game like that Northern Illinois game going into the fourth quarter. Now, if we play decently, we could end up winning the game by 21 points, 24 points. And if we play good, we could end up beating them by 40. There's a big, wide range of different outcomes that could potentially happen in this Towson game. And last episode, I said this Towson game, to give you guys a little bit of a preview, to give you guys a little bit of an idea of this Towson game, they remind me a lot of what Northern Illinois is. They want to run the football, and they haven't done so effectively so far, and that's a big reason why I think Maryland football has a really good shot at having a really good game against Towson. Is Towson wants to run the ball. They've tried to run the ball all year. In their game against Norfolk, they ran the ball over 29. So 29 between its top two running backs. Another running back got a couple of carries. So they had 32 carries, and including their quarterback, 38 carries. They're a team that wants to run the ball, similar to how Northern Illinois is. They're going to test our defensive front. But the thing about Towson so far this year is, yes, they've run the ball. Yes, they've done some things running the football. They haven't ran the ball effectively. It's one of those things where they're kind of just handing it off because they know that's how they're going to have the opportunity to win the game. And to me, that's not too scary for a Maryland football team that I totally expect to be able to stop the run. I expect our defense to have a pretty big game against this Towson team, but they're not going to be a team that just throws the ball 50 times a game. That's not what we're going to see. They're not like us. They want to control the clock more. They want to they want to give the running backs about 30 carries a game combined with a couple of guys they have in the backfield. And some of our guys up front, Cam Rice, who's been really good, Dylan Fontes played well, Ian Thomas, some of these guys up front, Joel Starlings, some of these defensive tackles up front, they're going to get tested. And I think they're going to play well against this Towson team, but Towson is going to run the ball. They don't care if they can run it. They don't care if it's not going well. They're going to force feed the run until it doesn't work anymore. And I think that's something that's really big about this game. And then so far this year, Towson, when you look at how they match up with Maryland, giving you guys a preview, this really interesting part about this Towson team, they don't actually really stop the run well. Ding, ding, ding. So this could be a huge type of game for Maryland football where it's like, are we actually, or sorry, they do stop there. They do stop the run well. And it's like, are we going to be able to run the ball against a run defense that has played really well so far this year? And I think it kind of matches up with what we want to do because it's like, I don't think their secondary is as strong and we're going to throw the ball a lot probably. But I want to see if we can get the run game going. And this Towson team's a good example against a team that has done pretty well against the run in its first couple of games against Norfolk State and their other opponent, Morgan State. Like, they've done a pretty good job of stopping the run. So I want to see, is Maryland going to be able to run the ball? Like, when you look at Norfolk State, they couldn't run the ball at all. Their leading rusher, Kayvon King, had 11 carries, 30 yards, 2.7 average. Next guy, Xavion Evans, 7 carries, 12 yards, 1.7 average. They couldn't run it. Their quarterback, 7 carries, 0.7 yards per carry. They just couldn't run the ball against Towson. And so it'll be really interesting to see this Towson team against a run defense that's technically good against the teams that they've played. Let's be real, though. Compared to teams in the Big Ten, they're not very good of a run defense. So I don't want to jack them up too much, but I do think a strength of theirs right now is that they're pretty good at stopping the run. I think the Towson quarterback is a really interesting part of their team. This kid, Andrew Indoff, freshman quarterback. They're having an experienced roster, but they don't have an experienced quarterback. But he is a guy that he's an unranked freshman, but he got the job. So we have a little bit of a freshman battle between Malik Washington and this kid, Andrew Indoff. But when I hear freshman quarterback for Towson football, so it's a kid that I'm sure he was good wherever he was at school. But let's be real. A freshman quarterback at Towson, Maryland football should be able to eat up on. There's no question about it that they should be able to eat up on. We should be able to play at a pretty high level against a freshman quarterback at Towson. I just think that's the way it should go. I just think that's what should happen for Maryland football. And I trust that is what's going to happen with this Andrew kid. He's played okay so far this year. I don't think they trust him completely. Another similarity to Northern Illinois. He threw the ball 26 times against Norfolk State. He did have 187 yards, which isn't a ton, but 3 touchdowns for him against Norfolk State is pretty big time. Morgan State, a little bit of a similar type of game. 18 to 23, 186 yards, only 1 touchdown. So he's been pretty efficient. He's not throwing the ball a ton, but he's doing so efficiently. So he's been impressive for a freshman quarterback, but he hasn't seen a team like Maryland. So those are just a quick preview, Towson, kind of what we're going to be looking at. But what are the actual keys? What actually needs to happen in this game against Towson for Maryland to be able to win? I have a bunch of different things that I think Maryland needs to do to be able to crush Towson, to be completely honest, and where Maryland can take advantage of Towson. I'll talk about those different things next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move cultures, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is when I saw Zahir Mathis make another highlight sack. The freshman keeps on playing well. He kept moving forward, going for it no matter what, and it was really impressive to see. And when you're flying, what moves you can make, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. So guys, make sure you're like Zahir Mathis and continue to move forward, because that sack that he has defines the game. It defines Maryland football. And even if your team lost, how did they keep themselves moving forward? It's guys like Zahir Mathis who play really well, or even a post-game interview that they had a positive outlook. That's what keeps the fans moving forward. So like I said, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So I have a couple different keys for this game, a couple different matchups that I'm going to be looking out for Maryland football. I think the number one key to this game against Towson, it sounds simple. I'm going to say this a lot the entire year, but specifically against a team like this, it's stopping the run. If we can stop the run against this Towson team, they can't beat us. They can't stick with us. They can't play with us if we can't stop the run. If we can stop the run. I think it's a fairly simple formula. It doesn't really matter how well we play offensively. I know they're going to score at least a little bit of points. If the defense stops the run, Towson isn't going to be able to score on us. And I truly believe that. And I think that's the first key to us winning the game. And I was thoroughly impressed with Cam Rice, and I'm impressed overall with how this defensive line is coming together. And then it's not just about the defensive line. I think I get stuck on those guys sometimes. I love our linebackers, and I think they're going to stop the run very well, whether it's Trey Reddick, whether it's our one of our leaders, Daniel Wingate, who I think is a really awesome player. And I'm really impressed with Daniel Wingate. But I think we have to absolutely stop the run against this Towson team because it's what they want to do. Whether they've done it well, whether they've done it poorly, they want to run the football. They've done it a ton. And when you look at it, it says Towson represents an opportunity for Maryland's rushing attack to find a rhythm before Big Ten play starts. This is what it says on the Maryland SB Nation page. It says that they have ran the ball a ton over the first two games, even though they haven't been particularly successful. So when I look at this Maryland team, when I look at what needs to be done against this Towson team to be able to pull off the win, I think the first thing I point to is you got to be able to stop the run. Now, the next thing is less about a key to the game, but something I will be looking at. Can Maryland football run the football? We haven't been able to run the football against anybody so far this year. And let's be real. Nobody that we've played this year so far has been that good. Nobody's defensive line has been that good. Nobody's linebacker core has been that good compared to the teams that we're about to play. When we go over to Wisconsin, what are we, 7.5-point underdogs? Nobody has had those types of defenses that we're going to see in the Big Ten, and we haven't been able to run the football against any of them. And so far, nobody's really been able to run the football against Towson. They've done a good job of stopping the run. So I'm wondering myself, a matchup in this game is Maryland's offensive line, Towson's defensive line has been pretty good so far this year. Can Maryland actually stop it? Can Maryland actually be effective against the run? Something that we haven't, or be effective running the football. Something we haven't really seen from Maryland football. I don't know what's going on with the back, whether it's Nolan Ray, Williams. Who's the guy there? Who's going to lead us? So far, it's been nobody. I don't care if it's a freshman, Iverson Howard. We need to find somebody that can find some type of run lanes because it's going to be harder and harder to win in the Big Ten. Of course, we can't talk and have a show not talking about Malik Washington. I want to see improvement from last week against Northern Illinois. I said there's a lot of positives to take away against Northern Illinois. It was really, it was one of those games where things just weren't clicking, and there's going to be growing pains for a freshman quarterback. I don't care who your freshman quarterback is. Name a freshman quarterback that didn't have some growing pains. You can't. You can't. There's always some type of growing pains, whether it's big, whether it's small. There's going to be some growing pains that happen as a freshman quarterback. And for Malik Washington, he had those against Northern Illinois, and against FAU, it was all kind of sunshine and rainbow, especially going into that second quarter where everyone was kind of praising him. And everyone thinks he's really good. Obviously, I love the kid. I'm very excited that we have a player like that. But my point is, I got to see improvement, not only just from him, but from the entire offensive side of the ball. And I thought we let him down at times in the game against Northern Illinois, but we can't have another game where we only score 20 points because that ain't going to get it done. If we can only score 20 points against Northern Illinois, we're only going to score, 10 points against Wisconsin, 13 points against Wisconsin. We got to be able to score 30, 35, 42 points against a team. I just think that's what has to happen. I think that's what we need to happen for Maryland football to be effective as we want to be. I just don't think the way we're playing right now, the way we played last game offensively just isn't really where it needs to be. So I think that needs to happen for Maryland football. I want to see Malik Washington, and I want to see a little bit better rapport with guys like Octavian Smith. Octavian Smith arguably could be our most talented, best receiver. I know a lot of people would probably say Jaleel Farouk, but Octavian Smith's been quiet all year, and we've expected to step up, and I thought it would be a pretty easy step up for him to make, but it hasn't really happened yet, and we're still kind of waiting for it. And so I want to see better rapport with him. I want to see Jaleel Farouk. Towson can't cover us. I don't think they're going to get to the quarterback a ton. You're going to have time back there. The offense should look better. We should have cleaned some things up, and we should be ready to go, and we should feel pretty confident going into the next game against Wisconsin when stuff starts to actually matter, when stuff starts to actually play a toll on us. So I think that's also a really important part of this, something that needs to happen for Maryland football. So really important that we play at a high level against Towson, that we do some good things against Towson, and we see Malik Washington take some strides. I think those are some of the keys. Those are some of the storylines that I'll be watching against Towson. Let's give a prediction. We'll talk about the spread. I'll give you guys a score. We'll talk about that next. I'll let you guys know everything you need to know about the lines heading into the game. We'll do that next. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy. That's why I love using Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. Uses the perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering the 3 times electrolytes, half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My go-to flavor is an orange. It's a game changer after workout or on those extra busy days. I've tried a lot of electrolyte powders, but nothing tastes as good or works as fast as Drip Drops. I always keep a few packets in my backpacks that save me more than once from the midday crash. Drip Drop has become my go-to, especially during long summer days or when I know I'll be sweating it out. And right now, Drip Drop is offering our listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Drip Drop, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. So let's talk about the spread for this Maryland versus Towson game. Predictions for the game. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think Maryland wins pretty big, but I can still see a world. This is the weird thing when you're talking about spreads for these types of games and kind of what happens in this types of game, because you can be like, yeah, Maryland rolls, but Towson still finds a way to cover late. So that's what I'm kind of going with. I think Maryland wins big. I think Towson does find a way to cover late, a way to play at a high enough level in the fourth quarter where maybe a lot of Maryland's guys are out. Whatever the case is, I can see a world where Towson covers late and they figure out how to do that, which I think is definitely more than possible for Maryland. They're 29.5 favorites against Towson. And so here's how I see this game. Again, it really comes down to me, if Maryland's offense is going to be the one we saw against FAU or the one we saw against Northern Illinois. It's that simple when I talk about Maryland covering this game. If Maryland puts up the amount of points they did against FAU, and remember, this defense on paper is actually worse. It's the worst one we've seen so far this season. I know we can't get carried away too much with the fact that they're 2-0. It's the worst defense so far we've seen this season. Just talent, whatever the case is, when you look at the betting lines, like it's the worst defense that we've played. FAU, Northern Illinois are better defenses. And so if Maryland's offense, I think, can score points, I think we can cover this game. And I think that'll happen. I still think there's a good chance Towson backdoors, but I do think we score at least 35 points for Maryland football. Now, the spread's 29.5. So it's like you can score 35 points or 42, but if Towson scores 14, all of a sudden they still cover that spread. And so my other point, this brings me to the other point of this, is the reason why I think if Maryland's offense scores, Maryland's going to cover. I don't think Towson's going to be able to move the ball on us. Freshman quarterback, a kid that has played pretty well so far, but let's be real. The teams that they've played are nowhere near kind of what we're going to be defensively. They're just not. And how we're rushing the passer, how we're getting off the edge, he's going to feel the most uncomfortable. He's going to feel very uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than he's been ever in his life. I don't know what his background is, but I can promise you, there ain't a high school football team better than Maryland football. Maybe some people want to argue IMG. Maybe some people want to argue St. Francis, whatever the case is. That's like a joke. Obviously, there's not a high school football team that would beat a college-level Big Ten team. That would just never, ever happen. And so I can tell you that kid will be under a lot of duress, a lot of pressure against a real Big Ten defense that is better than what a lot of people thought. And I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball against that. I don't. They try and spam the run, but they can't really run the ball. They're just like us. They're in the same boat as us. They can't run the football. They haven't been able to run the ball really well all year. And when you take in the fact that we're playing Maryland now, we're not playing Morgan State. We're not playing some of these poor opponents that were on their schedule. You're playing Maryland now. So if you can't run the football against them, you're not going to be able to run the football against us. And if they do run the football well, they'll be in the game and they'll probably cover. Or even if they run it pretty well. But I just don't see that happening. And with their freshman quarterback, I can see us getting a pick or two. We saw that against FAU with a guy that was experienced, that has played a ton, commit a lot of turnovers. And one thing about early season Maryland, I don't know what it is, we turn over people. We force people to turn over the ball. We force people into bad passes. We do a lot of really good things. That's one thing about Maryland football that I enjoy, that I think is really good about Maryland football early season, is we're going to turn over like I remember last year? I think it was last year, where early on the season, teams couldn't keep the ball against us. Our defense just turned them over. We like led the country in turnover rate. And part of it is a skill, but some of that is a little bit of luck. But better to be lucky than to be good. And so to go back to the 30, I think if Maryland gets into the 40s, I think we can cover it, because I don't think that Towson is going to score more than 7 to 10 points. So if we get 42 points, I think we cover the 30 points. But if we score in the 30s, I think there's a good opportunity for them to cover. It's 30 points. So if we score 30 and they still score a field goal, they cover that 29.5. That's my thing. I'm like, not a lot of room for error for Maryland football. And that goes back to my point. If Malik Washington and the Maryland offense can't get going, we can't find some deep plays. Like, I want to see some deep plays down the field. I want to see some big-time throws from Malik. If we can't do that, we ain't going to win the game. So that's just how I see it for Maryland football. I know you guys have different opinions on it, but that's kind of how I see it. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. Make sure you guys drop your predictions down below too. I'm interested to hear what you guys have for scores. But that's all we have for today. So thank you guys for listening to Locked On Terps.